rise to take a call to support the Taxation, International Investment and Remedial Matters Bill. Labour supports this bill to select committee. Mr. Speaker, Deloitte published in March this year an article on proposed further changes to international tax regime. I'd like to borrow the title of that article, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. It's very fitting that we borrow that title to describe the various aspects presented by this bill and the priorities the government has taken. The minister responsible for the bill, the Honourable Peter Dam, in his recent speech at the 2010 NZICA tax conference, explained how good the bill is. He said the bill, and I quote, provides consistency of tax treatment between similar types of foreign investment by extending the active income exemption and active business test with some small modifications to non-portfolio foreign investment funds, i.e. FIFS. It also extends and rationalizes the portfolio FIF reforms so that those investors who are unable to use the active income exemption due to having an insufficient shareholding or access to information will generally be taxed on an assumed 5% rate of return, fair dividend rate method, end quote. I also note his statement that his government also intends to make New Zealand a more attractive place to invest in by lowering withholding taxes through double tax agreements. From the government's point of view, this bill means New Zealanders holding stakes of 10% or more in offshore companies will not be subject to New Zealand tax on those interests unless the companies earn passive income such as interest, royalties and rent. The bill replaces the exemption for non-portfolio foreign investment funds in the 8 grey list countries with an exemption for non-portfolio FIFS that are resident and subject to tax in Australia. As I said, Labour supports this bill to select committee. This is a large and complex bill which reminded me of the days when I was at the Finance and Expenditure Select Committee. This is a large and complex bill that warrants careful consideration, and the scrutiny of a select committee is a necessary and the most appropriate one. Concerns such as those raised by Deloitte are good examples. Commenting on the discussion document that gave rise to this bill, Deloitte stated that the removal of the grey list will expose investors to income attribution when they have previously been exempt. The corresponding tax compliance burden and possible inability to access the required information to meet the alternative exemption may make some New Zealand investors comparatively worse off. This is amplified when you consider that a number of other major trading nations have or are in the process of introducing a form of green list. I will remain to be very interested in the development of this bill and wish the Minister at some later stages to take a call and enlighten us with his answers to those questions or how he believes would be the best way to address those issues. From a technical perspective, this bill follows the Taxation, International Taxation, Life Insurance and Remedial Matters Act 2009, which the government kindly and inadequately reintroduced tonight. That bill changed the way in which a resident's attributed controlled foreign company income is calculated. This bill aligns the method for calculating foreign investment fund income with the current method for calculating attributed controlled foreign company income. It also makes two changes to the thin capitalization rules. This bill introduces an optional test based on the ratio of deductible interest expenditure to net cash flow. It also changes the rules relating to the grouping for the purposes of the thin capitalization rules of a registered bank owned by the Crown. Further, the bill introduces a zero rate for the approved issuer levy on payments made by approved issuers to non-residents under some debt instruments, and the bill introduces other measures. While commending the Revenue Minister for his obvious contribution towards this bill, I cannot help but note a report released yesterday that the tax revenue was over $1 billion lower than expected. The government knew or must have the required knowledge that the upper income tax cuts are unaffordable, meaning the government has to borrow even more to make up the shortfall for its tax cuts to the highest income earners, meaning the government broke its promise of not raising GST and raised it anyway, meaning huge cuts to our health system, to adult education, and to the early childhood education funding. A huge cut to early childhood education funding means parents with young children will have to find extra each week, and the $1.2 billion hole in health spending over the 4 years will hit the elderly and the sick very, very hard. The National Act government doesn't seem to be interested in investing in our future either. They are turning students away from universities and polytechnics and cutting research and development investment. And they even cut the much-needed refugee study grant. I attended the National Refugee Resettlement Center AGM last Saturday. One could feel that this cut will be felt very hard in the refugee community. Since National have been in the office, the migrant and refugee community in New Zealand have taken a number of blows. The fact that the unemployment rate amongst the ethnic community members has skyrocketed in the past 2 years has been compounded by a number of short-sighted and negligent decisions from the National Act government. Funding has run out for the refugee study grant, which was axed in the 2009 budget. The grant was established by the Labour government in 2003 and created a direct pathway for many hundreds of refugees to get into work. Well, politics is all about priorities. From these moves, we can see that the National Act government is focused on delivering tax breaks for the privileged few at a time when the majority of ordinary New Zealanders are struggling. A tax switch is no substitute for a real economic plan. On those notes, I supported the bill to select committee. I look forward to more debate on the aspects of the bill and the priorities of the government, revealing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Thank you very much.